Hello folks, welcome to the Edipedia world and I am Abhinay Gupta. Today again we'll continue with the topic, the appointment and qualification of directors. In the preceding few lectures we have dealt with the important topics like the proportional representation of directors, the mode of election, the mode of appointment, right? And in the immediate preceding two lectures we have covered the important topic of independent directors. Right? We have covered all the provision, we have understood the meaning of independent directors and also the procedure for their appointment. Right? And what are the qualifications, what are the conditions that are needed for a person to be an independent director. Right? We have already seen that it is basically applicable on listed companies. They have to have a minimum of one-third directors to be independent. Right? One-third of the population of their board. And this was basically the requirement of clause 49 of the listing agreement. This is to enhance corporate governance, that the concept of independent directors were introduced. And we know it's a new concept. This was not present in the previous Companies Act, that is Companies Act 1956. This is a new provision which has been brought by the Companies Act 2013. So this becomes an important topic for you for your examination point of view as well. Right? So these managing directors, whole-time directors, nominee directors, these are not independent directors. Right? We have seen the criteria for independence, and there were 6 basic conditions that needs to be fulfilled. Right? And even the person who is being appointed as an independent director to a company needs to give a declaration and a consent. Right? And that declaration would include that he is qualified to be an independent director. He is not disqualified. Right? Those conditions have been fulfilled. Right? So we'll go through the conditions in brief before we move ahead with the other topics. Right? So the basic condition was that the person needs to be a person of integrity, expertise and experience. Right? And he should not be a promoter or director of the company, its associate company, holding or subsidiary. And neither should he be related to the promoter or director of the company, associate, subsidiary or holding. Right? Next important topic that we saw was that the independent director, or the person who is about to be elected as an independent director, should not hold any pecuniary relationship with the company, associate, subsidiary or holding. And pecuniary relationship means financial relationship, and that too profitable financial relationship. We have discussed the examples for that already. Right? And he should also not be a promoter or director of, he should not hold a pecuniary relationship with promoter or director of these companies. Right? And the period to be covered would be the immediately preceding 2 financial year and the current financial year. That means a total of 3 years will be checked. If you had held any pecuniary relationship before that, prior to the 3 years behind if you go, and over there if you had any pecuniary relationship, that would not be considered. Right? So if you had any pecuniary relationship 3 years back, you are still eligible to be an independent director. And in case of relative also the same provision applies, but over there the relative had been given a limit. So if they hold any pecuniary relationship over 50 lakh rupees or 2% of the company's gross turnover, then he would be considered to be disqualified. Right? So that is the limit. Below that it's all allowed to be independent. Right? And then the next point that we saw is that any person plus its relative should not be the key managerial person or employee of the company, its associates, subsidiary or holding. Right? And they should also not be the employee, partner or proprietor of certain firms. So we have seen 2 categories of firm. One is the firm of CA, CS or CWA. Over there, if any of those firm is linked to the company, associate, subsidiary or holding, then the independent director cannot be appointed from amongst the employee, partner or proprietor of such firm. Right? And the other category of firm was the legal and consultancy firm. So if legal or consultancy firm is connected to the company, associate, subsidiary or holding, and if they have more than 10% of the gross turnover coming from this company, right, the turnover of the firm, if this company contributes more than 10% of the GTO of the firm, then the employee, proprietor and partner of those firm would not be allowed to be independent director in the company. Right? Third is that the independent director, that the person who is opting to be appointed as an independent director, that person or his relative, combined they should not be holding more than 2% of the voting power of the company. Now remember, this is only one place where you don't refer to the associate, subsidiary or holding, where it talks about the 2% voting power of the company individually. And the fourth point over there was that he should not be the CEO or director of the non-profit organization. Now it's not talking about all the non-profit organization. We're talking about only those non-profit organizations who hold more than 2% of the voting power of the company. Or if that limit is not fulfilled, even if they receive more than 25% of their receipt from the cash, associate, subsidiary or holding, then also the CEO and director of those NPO would not be allowed to be appointed as independent director. And at last but not the least, the person who is about to be elected as an independent director should not be less than 21 years of age. Right? So that is what we had covered in the previous lectures. So, and I hope you people remembered it, and we had to revise it because it was an important topic, right? And this would seep it down into your brains. Next, we'll move on to the new topic of the day. That would be section 162. The individual voting for appointments, right? So as per the heading, we understand that the appointment of director needs to be voted independently. This act prohibits the election of more than one director passing a single resolution, right? So that is strictly prohibited by the act. But if in case any company wants to conduct such an election, like wants to conduct such an appointment of director, and they want a single resolution to be passed for more than 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever number of directors, then that can be done only if there is a resolution passed prior to that resolution without any vote in negative, right? Without any vote being cast against the resolution, right? And that resolution would be for appointing more than one director in a single resolution, right? Understand? So that is the only exception, right? And the point to be noted over here is that you should not have any vote in negative. That does not mean you should have 100% vote. If there are 1000 shareholders present in the general meeting and you want a resolution to be passed for appointing more than one director by a single resolution, and you roll out the option in front of the shareholders, and only 850 shareholders have voted for it, and they are positive. They agree with appointing more than one director passing a single resolution, and other 150 they abstain from voting. Now if that is a scenario, will the resolution be considered to have been passed? The answer is yes, because the act says that there should be no negative vote. So 150 shareholders have abstained from giving their consent, but they did not give a negative consent. They did not object to this condition, right? So that would be a valid resolution for electing more than one director for passing a single resolution, right? So if we consider the steps to be followed for appointing more than one director passing a single resolution, then first of all you need to pass a resolution authorizing such an appointment, right, where no vote should be a negative vote. And once the resolution is passed, then you will pass an ordinary resolution for appointment of the director, and that can be done in any general meeting, maybe a annual general meeting, maybe extraordinary general meeting, any of them, right? It is not compulsory. This procedure is not compulsory to be conducted in an annual general meeting. Always remember, only retirement by rotation or the retirement procedure is to be conducted in the annual general meeting, but appointments can be done in any general meeting, right? Now, what would be the consequence if any company violates such a provision? If section 162 is violated by a company, that means if a company elects more than one director passing a single resolution without passing a resolution beforehand authorizing such a resolution, then what? The directors, if they are being elected in such way, that election would be considered, that appointment would actually be considered to be invalid. It would be void, right? But the acts, if that director has acted before considering it to be void and before considering it to be wrong or invalid, if the director has performed certain duties, certain acts, then those acts would continue to be valid, right, unless the discrepancy has been proved, right? So the acts of director may remain valid. And the last point is that there would be no automatic reappointment. So if the appointment of director has not been successfully completed, right, or if it has been considered to be void, that does not allow the directors to be reappointed automatically. Now, if those directors wants to be on the board, if they are still wanting to continue to be on the board, the shareholders will have to hold another meeting and appoint them individually, right? Or again, then they can pass a single resolution, but for that they will have to authorize that resolution beforehand, right? So if the director is found guilty, or if the company is found guilty of such contravention of section 162, then the directors would have to vacate the office, right? Now we have completed the provision of 162, right? But did we think what is the actual problem behind electing more than or appointing more than one director in a single resolution? Why is it not allowed? Why do we need a majority of vote, or actually the 100% majority, without any vote being casted in against? We would not call it 100% majority, but yeah, 100% majority of the people present and voting, right? So that is because suppose you have 4 directors, A, B, C and D, right? And you pass a resolution that either you select all of them or reject all of them. There is Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C and Mr. D who are waiting for appointment. You need 4 directors, no doubt. But then you pass on a single resolution. Should we hire them? Should we appoint them as directors? So if any shareholder, or if the majority of shareholders, they do not want to, for example, appoint C, they do not want C onto their board, they have no option. Either they'll have to reject all 4 of them or accept all 4 of them. So that is where the problem arises. So to avoid such a situation, every director will be voted individually, and then his selection or his rejection would depend on his own abilities and his own choice, on the choice of the shareholders, depending on that particular person. It would not be influenced by other people, right? So that was all about section 162, individual voting for appointment, right? Then next we move on to section 152 subsection 1, and we'll understand who the first directors of the company are. So the procedure for electing or appointing the first director or first directors of a company would be given in the article of association of the company, right? The article will prescribe the procedure that would be followed for appointing the first directors, right? And if nothing is mentioned over there, then the subscribers of the memorandum would be considered to be the first directors. Now we also consider over here the regulation 60 of table F, and according to regulation 60 of table F, the number of directors as well as the name of directors, like how many directors would be there on the board as first directors and who will those persons be, that shall be determined in writing by the subscribers of the memorandum, right? Either all of them, or if all of them are not giving it in writing, at least a majority should be doing so, right? So we see either the provisions are given in the article, and if nothing is given, we could follow regulation 60 of table F also, right? That is a standard, right? We could follow that. So according to that, the subscribers of memorandum would have the authority to decide as to who would be appointed as the first directors of the company. And if they do not appoint, then they themselves would be the first directors of the company. The subscribers of memorandum are deemed to be the first directors of the company, but only those who are individuals. If any body corporate is the subscriber of memorandum, they would not be considered to be the director of the company, right? Because we have seen directors have to be individual only, right? And if the company is a one-person company, then obviously that member who is running the company, the owner of the company, would be the director of the company. We would not go by the memorandum and article and regulation of table F. We would not see any of them, because there is only one single person, the whole and soul of the company, right? He is the member, he would be the director of the company too, right? So that is about the provisions of the Act, the provisions of section 152 subsection 1, right? Now if we see the procedures, then we see that the person who is to be appointed as director, that person would furnish the DIN, the director identification number, to the company. That is the first priority. right? And along with the DIN, they will also send the declaration of non-disqualification, right? They would send a declaration that the disqualification mentioned in the sections of the Companies Act 2013, specifically the disqualification of section 164 subsection 1 and 2, are not attracted. That has to be given as a declaration that yeah, those disqualifications are not attracted to me, and hence I am qualified to be a director of the company, right? And then they will also have to give a statement of consent to hold the office, that yes, they are willing to hold the office. It is not, they are not doing it under any pressure or something, right? And they'll send it to the company when they are elected, and then it is the responsibility of the company to forward the same to the ROC, and that will be done in 30 days from the appointment of such directors. That is the time limit given, right? So the person furnishes DIN plus declaration plus consent to the company, and company forwards the same to the registrar of company within 30 days, right? So that is all about the first directors of the company. And the last topic of today's lecture would be section 152 subsection 2 to subsection 5, right? That is the general provisions relating to the appointment of directors. So the first thing that we have seen is that the directors need to hold a director identification number. That is a mandate. Without a DIN, no person can be appointed to the board of directors of a company, right? And we have seen in section 164 that there is no qualification required. The only thing you need is a DIN. For DIN, you have to have one qualification basically, that is that you should have attained the age of 21 years. Before that, you won't be given the DIN. 21 years is the age limit for an independent director, to be specific. But other directors, for DIN, you could be more than 18 years. That means you have to be major. Only minors are not allowed to apply for DIN, right? So that is a restriction over there, right? And that is the only reason why minors cannot be a director of a company, because they cannot hold DIN. They cannot be allotted DIN by the government, right? They're not eligible to obtain DIN. And another reason why a minor cannot be a director is because being a minor, he cannot file his written consent to the company, right? They cannot file a valid consent. It is not considered to be valid, the consent to act as a director. So that is another reason they cannot be appointed as a director of a company, may it be a public company, private company, whatever, right? So over here, if we come back to the topic, the first point is that the director should be holding a director identification number as given by the central government, right? And we have seen the procedures of DIN already in the previous lectures, right? Then in the previous slide, we have already seen that the director or the person who is appointed as director of the company will have to furnish this DIN plus a declaration along with the consent to the company, right? That is just after their appointment. And then the company forwards it to the ROC in 30 days. Then the other point is that appointment of directors can be held in any general meeting. It is not compulsory to hold an annual general meeting to appoint directors of the company, right? It could be done in any general meeting. So we have to remember this point, and when you're writing it into the exam, remember to write general meeting and not annual general meeting, right? That could disrupt the entire answer, right? And the consent that we have been talking about would be given in form DIR 2. And when they are appointing an independent director, they will also have to annex a statement of appointment of independent director to the notice of the general meeting that they will be sending to the shareholders, right? So those are the basic provisions for appointment of directors. We have seen the appointment of various directors, right? And then we have a few more topics remaining that we will be covering in the upcoming lectures, which would be about rotational, non-rotational directors, about the data bank of directors, alternate director, additional director, nominee director, and removal of director, vacancy of office. These are the very few topics that are remaining in this chapter, and we'll be covering them in the upcoming lectures. So until then, stay tuned. This is Abhinay Gupta signing off. Thank you. Bye-bye.